An ugly bird lands right next to a beautiful one and gets Spartan smacked to its doom. Gu, a pretty average young adult, gets ready for a job interview, all while complaining that attractive people have it easy, while the rest of us have to struggle. As he passes through the living room, he overhears the news about the beautiful queen's latest law banning ugly people from being seen in public. Gu switches off the TV, not bothered, and continues to get ready. He tells his younger sister Ming to stay inside. On the way to his interview, Gu spots a cop arresting an otaku, just trying to buy a new anime figure. He also notices a short, balding fat man trying to dodge the authorities. Apparently, this dude is a rare 3-star class ugly who's been ducking them for 5 months. The cops get the go-ahead to shoot their cameras. After getting beaten down by the police, the guy is hit with the crime of being ugly. His punishment? Life in prison, all his stuff taken, and a ban on ever looking in a mirror again. A young couple mocks him while a mom warns her kid to never go outside. A crowd gathers, shouting insults at the man. Gu watches with growing disgust. Gu snaps out of it when he's told he passed the interview, but his joy is short-lived. They've only hired him on a 90-day trial period. Meanwhile, his supervisor Cha keeps getting promotions thanks to her looks, and to top it off, she gets 6 months of vacation each year. Gu's mood plummets. One afternoon, Gu gets called into the office, where Cha chews him out for being so ugly that 2 clients canceled their orders. Gu tries to explain that he's already rocking the best suit and haircut he can afford, but Cha tells him to shut up. She orders him to kneel, and so he kneels. And when he looks up, she gives him a glare that sends him stumbling backward. She continues tearing into him, saying just looking at his face makes her depressed. As if that wasn't enough, she wishes all ugly people would just die. After work, Gu is stuck lifting boxes at Cha's command. When he asks why he has to take time off after work for this, she snaps at him to quit talking back and help her move in and clean her house. Begrudgingly, Gu obeys and starts with the mountain of dirty dishes before mopping the floors. While Cha relaxes in a bath, she instructs him to clean her room after washing her clothes. When she gets out, she also tells him to clean the bathroom and not even think about looking at her. Gu walks by her to clean the bath but accidentally steps on her toes. Mentally and physically drained, he staggers home, carrying the chicken he promised Ming. When he arrives, Ming holds up a note asking when she can finally go outside. Gu feels a pang of guilt and embraces her. Something needs to change, and he promises her that one day she'll be able to walk down the street proudly. The next day, Gu wakes up and commutes to work, where the more attractive people get priority seating. Even at crosswalks, they go first. While waiting for his turn, the beauty queen makes a surprise broadcast, and several people faint just from looking at her. She reveals that criminals who tried to alter their appearances through surgery have been caught, and their public execution via camera shooting is broadcasted. The queen warns everyone not to try changing their appearance, or they'll face the same fate. Back at the office, Gu is forced to grovel before Cha for ignoring her calls. As he lies on the floor, she viciously berates him for being ugly and tells him to remember his place. When Gu returns home, he finds a small voucher slipped under the door. Inside, Ming doesn't greet him like she usually does, and she refuses to go out of her room. The next day, Gu follows the instructions on the voucher and heads to a public park toilet. He arrives at the designated stall. He inspects every corner but finds nothing. Then, remembering the code word sewer, a hidden panel slides open beneath his feet and he drops several feet underground. After picking himself up, he wanders through the dark tunnels and suddenly bumps into an invisible wall. High-tech cameras start scanning him, confirming he's ugly and has a voucher. They toss him down another set of tubes. He lands on a different floor and is welcomed by a man named Dr. Machete, hands down the coolest name ever. Assuming Gu is here as a volunteer, the doc doesn't wait for a response. Robotic arms pop out from his back so he can begin the experiment, and Gu is enclosed in a massive metal device. Suddenly, the lab is raided by the police, who arrest him for endangering national security. Machete hits a button, collapsing the ceiling to buy himself time. Machete mutters that it's all on Gu now to restore the world to what it used to be. When the smoke clears and the dust settles, the capsule opens. Police rush in, cameras ready. When a woman starts approaching them, the officer's beauty detectors suddenly go off the charts. Only the beauty queen herself is known to possess a 5-star beauty rating. The woman is so dazzling that the officers physically flinch and fall to the ground, dropping their camera guns in the process. The woman, who turns out to be Gu, looks at a broken mirror and realizes he's turned into a girl. While trying to figure out what happened, Gu realizes that Machete turned her into a girl, now glowing with a radiant aura. Gu leaves the ruins of the lab and makes her way back to the surface through a manhole. Gu finds herself in the middle of a busy intersection where half the people fall head over heels for her and the rest bow down in worship. Everyone scrambles to cater to her every need, and Gu suddenly finds herself decked out in new clothes. She enters her old office building and requests a job. The HR guy hires her instantly and promotes her to CEO of Ret, a tech company, on the spot. She's even gifted a massive new office, and for the first time, Gu experiences the perks of being attractive. While loving her new life, Gu summons the department director Cha, who walks in all smiles, eagerly offering her services. Gu orders her to kneel and press her forehead to the floor, hoping to knock some humility into her. But to Gu's surprise, Cha enjoys being humiliated and degraded, if it's done by beautiful people. She asks that Gu humiliate her even more. She gets a little too excited for Gu's liking and pledges to do whatever Gu asks in the future, purely because of her looks. Gu feels unsettled by the realization that beauty alone can command so much power, but for Cha, that's just the way the world works. Beautiful people make a beautiful world, or so she says. Cha suggests Gu could even join the Beauty Guard, the Queen's elite circle of stunners. Intrigued by the potential power she could wield as a beauty guard, Gu sets her sights on that goal, hoping it will help improve Ming's life. Meanwhile, the 4 beauty guards hear about the emergence of a new 5-star beauty. However, they don't seem to be concerned in the slightest, and decide not to tell the Queen of this incident. The next morning, Gu watches a news report about a negative 1-star man who voluntarily surrendered to authorities after encountering 2,000 2-star beauties cleaning toilets. Subsequently, the recent surge in arrests of ugly people has strained the prison system so much that some are pushing for mass executions. Cha later asks Gu why she ordered the 2-star beauties to clean toilets, and Gu replies that it's part of a bigger plan to keep ugly people out of sight. Cha calls it genius, believing it'll eventually drive ugly people to extinction. Gu learns that she thinks all beautiful people are smart, while ugly people are inherently dumb. To her, it only makes sense. Gu whispers that she'll one day make Cha feel that same humiliation, making Cha weak in the knees. Before leaving, Gu asks how to access Ugly Gate Prison. Cha takes her to a government data center, warning her that only the Queen has the authority to enter the top-secret data rooms. Still, Cha hopes Gu's beauty will be enough to charm the staff. Gu combs through the records after records, trying to find out more about the prison, and finds info on a device called the aesthetic seismograph, but before she can learn more, the power cuts out. Rushing to the rooftop, Gu and Cha spot a woman in an elegant white cloak. Cha recognizes her as one of the 4 beauty guards, the Pink Petal Lord, Bright. Bright questions if Gu sent the 2,000 2-star beauties to clean the toilets, and in return, Gu asks her if she knows about the aesthetic seismograph. Bright's tone suddenly shifts. Gu's not supposed to know about the seismograph, which means she must be destroyed. Bright sneers that Gu's just a little bit prettier than average, and that she shouldn't get ahead of herself. Bright drops her cloak and activates a set of aesthetic detector drones that ascend into the skies. She explains that these robots, designed and approved by the Beauty Queen herself, will scan the beauty of both contestants, judge them, and destroy the lesser beauty. Gu is rated as a 4-star beauty, while Bright is ranked at 4.5 stars. Bright laughs, confident that as long as she basks in her light, her beauty remains unrivaled. Gu's fate seems sealed, but suddenly the drones power down on their own. Confused, Bright turns around to find Cha has unplugged her console. Without her light, Bright's beauty plummets to just 1.5 stars, making her a target for her own drones. The drones gun her down, transforming her into a piece of an emblem. Gu picks up the emblem fragment and decides to head to Ugly Gate Prison. Later that night, the remaining 3 beauty guards discuss Bright's defeat but shrug it off, calling her the weakest among them. Now that Gu has made herself an enemy, they begin preparing to take her out in the name of the Beauty Queen. At Ugly Gate Prison, inmates are abused, underfed, and forced to carry huge stones as punishment. The prisoners are constantly reminded that their sin of being ugly is an incredibly grave crime. Their very births were a mistake. A young boy asks his grandfather when they can leave, but the old man says that they have no choice but to remain here forever. Gu attacks Ugly Gate Prison using the same drones that Bright once used. Gu slaughter her way through the guards, demanding that the prisoners be released ASAP. When the guards refuse, they get shot. Gu enters the main prison tower, hoping to free all the prisoners. However, before she can hit the button, one of the 4 beauty knights interrupts her. He asks Gu why. Despite her looks, she insists on doing these pointless things. Decked out in flowery petals, he introduces himself as May, one of the 4 beauty knights. He reminds Gu that the beauty queen has declared it illegal to release ugly prisoners, thus Gu will be judged. Gu uses the device that Bright left behind to transform her outfit into a much more stunning and elegant dress. The entire budget of the show went to this one transition. The beauty detectors fly out of their cases and rank Gu's beauty at 5.3 stars. May, on the other hand, scores a meager 2.5 stars. However, as the only guy among the 4 beauty guards, May reminds her that the most beautiful beings on Earth will always be men. May also switches up his outfit to fit his vibe and adorns himself in an array of flowers. Despite this, his beauty rank still lags behind Gu's. Gu initially mocks his failure, but she is suddenly overwhelmed by a stinging stench. This is May's special pomelo flower, engineered to give off a nasty aroma. Because Gu has to cover her nose, her beauty ranking takes a massive hit. Suddenly, she's on the back foot. Thinking quickly, Gu throws some sand into May's eyes. Now that he's forced to squint and scrunch up his face, his beauty drops below Gu's. With his death imminent, May surrenders and begs for mercy, prompting the guns to stand down. May promises to follow Gu from now on, which makes her happy. May reveals that the beauty queen plans to maintain world order with an iron fist of beauty, with attractive people at the very top of society's hierarchy. Under this system, beautiful people will hold all the power. Cha finally catches up to check on Gu. Gu says she's fine, and that they'll bounce as soon as she frees the ugly people. However, before she can hit the button, Cha surprisingly stops her. Gu tries to shake free from Cha's grip, reasoning that now is their best chance to let all the ugly people go. However, Cha resists, believing it's better for them to stay locked up in their cages. Gu replies that those people were just unlucky to be born ugly and don't deserve this treatment. "They're just ugly," she exclaims, "and they've done nothing to deserve the bullying and abuse they receive." Cha snaps that there should be nothing wrong with how things are set up. Beautiful people, she reasons, are naturally good and right, so there's nothing wrong with removing society's ills. They enter a heated argument over who's wrong or right, culminating in Cha begging Gu not to destroy the society they've built so far, believing wholeheartedly that the current status quo is correct. However, because of the way the beauty drones are coded, Cha's actions are viewed as disobedience, and they take aim at her. Gu warns Cha that she's about to be taken out, but Cha stands her ground. If she's gonna die for her beliefs, then so be it. Gu repeats her earlier intention to free the prisoners and asks Cha if she'll back her up. Cha stays firm, refusing to condone it. Flashbacks of Cha's abusive treatment as a superior to her subservient role as her maidservant flash through Gu's mind. Gu reminds her that she's always followed orders, and Cha responds that she only follows beauty. With some of the most epic last words ever, Cha gets obliterated by the beauty drones, while Gu and May watch in shock. Gu, furious, presses the button to release the ugly prisoners regardless. Alarm bells ring out as the cell gates slide open for the prisoners to freedom. Gu addresses the prisoners from the courtyard, urging them to eat, do, and live as they please. They're free. The entire prison erupts in thunderous applause and cheers, but things quickly spiral out of control. Chaos erupts as the prisoners fight over food and scraps from the cafeteria. Several are shot into oblivion by the beauty guards. The prisoners start brawling and tearing each other apart like animals. Those who aren't immediately killed or trampled watch as one man, claiming to be the ugliest among them, declares himself king, and the others quickly fall in line. Gu is baffled. She thought she was giving them salvation. May explains that the ugly people know there's nothing left for them outside, so they prefer to live among themselves, putting down those who are even uglier. Gu is disgusted. It's no different from how beautiful people act. She starts to doubt if the world can truly change. May hands Gu her portion of the emblem, which serves as the badge of office for the Beauty Knights. She tells Gu that all 4 pieces must combine into a single emblem to grant her access to the secret room of the Beauty Queen. The answers Gu seeks may be hidden within. Gu asks for May's help in gathering the remaining 2 pieces, and she resolves to change the world as they know it. Meanwhile, 2 women on the street get into an argument, inevitably competing over whose beauty is superior. The Beauty Queen's aesthetic detector drones scan both women, killing the one whose beauty value is lower. At the same time, a news broadcast details Gu's latest takeover of 2 companies, the largest electric and flower companies in the country. Gu's reputation skyrockets, and she uses her platform to advocate for true beauty that goes beyond skin deep. She proclaims that true beauty lies within. Her views, though seen as strange and niche, start gaining attention. Mang is left alone at home with Gu, leaving behind a letter claiming that she'll be going on a business trip for a while, but promising that their house will be renovated while he's away. While Gu takes a bath, she reflects on Dr. Machete and how her origin story feels similar to Captain America's. May enters the bathroom and reports that he has 2 possible leads on the remaining beauty nights. Gu wants to ensure all details are in place before making any rash decisions. May asks if she really intends to make an enemy of the beauty queen, to which Gu firmly replies that she does. Her resolve is unshaken. She will change the world. She dismisses May, and he obeys just before. As May leaves the room, he muses that Gu's current personality reminds him of the beauty queen from 3 years ago. That evening, as Gu prepares to sit down for a private dinner, she is suddenly attacked by 2 pieces of eyeliner. A new enemy approaches. A girl steps out of the shadows, introducing herself as Ying, one of the 4 beauty knights. Gu flips the light switch, revealing her opponent. Ying, armed with a strange box at her hip, orders Gu to surrender to the beauty queen. Gu welcomes the challenge. 3 aesthetic detector drones crash through the window, immediately targeting Ying. However, Ying retrieves the box at her hip, it's a makeup kit, and uses it to give herself a makeover. This is her unique ability, the power to fine-tune her appearance instantly. Ying boasts that she's much better looking than Gu without makeup, and that's why she waited until Gu was fresh out of the shower to strike. The drones aim at Gu, and she attempts to maneuver so the laser beams hit Ying instead. But Ying, seeing through the plan, tells her it's useless. The drone lasers are extremely accurate. Yet, this was all part of Gu's plan. She rolls underneath the table, putting herself out of the drone's view. With no other target, the drones turn their guns toward Ying. From this low angle, Ying's true appearance, a middle-aged man, is revealed. Realizing her defeat, Ying doesn't even try to dodge. The laser strikes true, leaving nothing but her bag and her piece of the emblem behind. Gu picks up the emblem piece. Just 1 more to go. The last of the 4 beauty knights is almost saddened by Ying's defeat. The beauty queen can no longer ignore the situation and demands to know who is eliminating her faithful knights. The last remaining knight vows to discover more about Gu soon. A few days later, May informs Gu that she has found the whereabouts of the last remaining knight, Ball. Without hesitation, Gu sets out. They head to and walk straight through the entrance of the corporate building. Inside, the staff stands at attention, offering neither praise nor service. May feels the atmosphere is unsettling and shares her concerns with Gu. Gu also finds the situation strange. When they reach the front desk, the receptionist already knows why she is here. The Ball has been expecting them. The receptionist leads them to an elevator in the lobby and instructs Gu to take the elevator to the top floor, where they will meet Ball. Gu enters without any issue, but the receptionist stops May from entering, gave strict instructions to only allow Gu through. Despite May's worries, Gu reassures her, telling her to comply, and that it will all be over soon. Gu enters the elevator alone. Gu taps the button for the 80th floor, and May urges her to be careful, and the doors slam shut. After a 10-minute long ride, Gu arrives at the 80th floor. Almost immediately, the elevator behind her slams shut and a spotlight shines on the center of the room. Lord Ball stands idly in the center. Gu demands that Ball hand over her key fragment. When Ball refuses, Gu resorts to brute force, or rather, beauty. Shedding her outer garments, Gu begins her Sailor Moon transformation and becomes a stunning beauty. However, when Ball turns around, Gu is horrified to discover that her opponent is actually Little Mang. The aesthetic detector drones begin revving up their guns, but Gu steps in and stops them from firing. The drones stand down. Gu, confused, asks Mang what she's doing here, shocked that her sibling has been Lord Ball this whole time. Mang suddenly lashes out and scratches across Gu's face. Mang remarks that she's here to end her. Ball reveals her power. She can simulate any face she's seen in photos thanks to some high-tech gadget. Ball can simulate any face she desires, ensuring that her beauty always stays at the top. When Gu asks her how she figured out about Meng, Ball replies it wasn't that tough. Gu literally remodeled their place just for her. Plus, she knows Gu gets treated to 3 bougie meals a day. Ball then restores her face to its OG look and asks Gu if she's ready to meet her end. After removing her visor, the aesthetic detector drones size up their beauty against each other, and Gu takes the L. But before they can fire their lasers, 2 Roses messes with the simulator, making her face glitch through all the ones she's seen in the past. The drones lock on her instead and blast her to dust. Ball drops her key fragment, ripe for the picking. May swoops in just in time to save the day, and Gu's stoked to see him. Gu asks Mei how he even got there, and he says he used the vents. Mei picks up the last key fragment and hands it to Gu, completing the key. Now the Beauty Queen is within their reach. Gu and Mei head over to the Beauty Queen's castle, a dreamy fortress straight out of a theme park. Mei comments that 3 years ago, the castle was open to everyone. Homeless folks and beggars would roll in for help, and the Beauty Queen would happily feed and shelter them. But then, something changed. 3 years ago, the Beauty Queen suddenly wanted to do away with the current structure of society, and she briefly disappeared from the public eye. When she came back, she was this ruthless queen they all know now, executing her ministers and keeping only her 4 beauty knights as her squad. Nobody, not even the 4-night queen, knows why she suddenly flipped like that. Gu asks if the Beauty Queen's been seen lately, but Mei says she's pretty much a hermit, just sending out orders remotely. The gate has a beauty filter designed to block anyone who doesn't meet the standards. Gu and Mei breeze through without an issue, determined as ever. They march up the marble steps of the outer castle and reach the courtyard, where they find a factory churning out aesthetic detectors non-stop. Mei explains that not only is the Beauty Queen stunning, but she's also a total genius. Everything from the beauty filters to the drones was designed by her. They push forward and finally reach the main castle doors. Mei has to stay back since the filter would kill anyone who's not a 5-star beauty. Gu, without a second thought, steps into the castle. Mei begs her not to kill the Beauty Queen, but to help her instead. Gu struts straight into the reception hall, where the Beauty Queen, back-turned, stands by her throne. She spins around and introduces herself as the 14,049th queen of the beauty family peers. Her eyes bore into Gu, surprised that someone so average-looking could have taken out her elite guards and freed the prisoners of Ugly Prison. Gu pulls out the key she believes will open a hidden room behind the throne, which, according to her research, holds a device that can change people's hearts. Piers, the queen, finds it weird that even though Gu's beauty rivals hers, she's still going this far. Gu asserts that she's doing this to set the world right again. Piers warns Gu not to do it, but nothing's going to stop her. Aesthetic detector drones float menacingly around them both, but because of their beauty, at a pixel-perfect stalemate, the drone's motherboards short-circuit and explode. Gu stares Piers down, but suddenly the image of the queen flickers and vanishes. She was just an illusion. Pai's voice echoes through the hall. She's everywhere and has been waiting for this showdown for a long time. Gu realizes she's been tricked and runs out of the castle to meet up with Mei. A giant barrier forms around the castle and expands outward, vaporizing anyone who doesn't meet the beauty standards, no matter where they are or what they're doing. Ugly folks are wiped out one by one. This is Piers' endgame, a world free from all ugliness. Piers reassures Gu that she's still welcome in this new world. Gu races into the city to witness the devastation firsthand. A hologram of Piers appears over the city, gleefully announcing that the beauty filter has been completed. Right now it's only at level 1, eliminating people with a 1-star beauty score or below, but she plans to keep leveling up the filter until only the most beautiful remain. As the wave tears through the city, Gu sprints home to get Ming to safety. A camera drops down to scan Gu, but denies her entry. Gu pleads with Ming to open the door, warning her of the chaos about to go down. She claims to be her brother and begs her to come out. When the camera doesn't budge, Gu uses Ball's device to change her appearance to look like Ming, and the vault door swings open. Gu rushes inside to the room, but instead of Ming, she finds Piers waiting. The truth finally hits. Mang was the mastermind behind Piers all along. Turns out Mang had been the beauty queen the whole time. She never expected her brother to become a stunning girl. But hey, life's full of surprises. Mang casually admits she's done some shady things as the queen, but she's got zero regrets. It's time to end this mess. Gu's still in denial, struggling to accept that her sweet little sister is Piers. Mang snaps back, telling Gu she doesn't know the first thing about her. Gu tries to talk her sister down, but Mang's not budging. She's ready to face the end by herself. Then, with a casual push of a button, Gu is thrown out of the apartment by a robotic arm. Confused and on the ground, Gu yells out, begging Mang to explain why she's doing all this. Just as she's reeling, Dr. Machete suddenly appears out of thin air and tells Gu to bring the family key back to the castle. Beneath the throne lies the Hall of Inventors, holding the power to fix everything. Apparently, this whole thing has been leading up to Gu being the one to succeed. Machete reveals that he's already transformed 10 people into beautiful beings to restore the world, but every single one of them used their looks to spread chaos. Now, it's up to Gu. He hands her a tiny sample of royal blood, telling her it'll trick the aesthetic detectors inside the lab. With that, the truth will finally be laid bare. Without a word, Gu grabs the blood sample and heads straight to the castle. Once there, she uses the family key on the throne, which lowers her into a high-tech underground laboratory. In the center is a console, and Gu rushes toward it. Meanwhile, Mang calmly welcomes her impending doom as the beauty filter engulfs her in light, just as Gu injects the blood sample into the console. 3 years earlier, a young Mang had been releasing baby turtles into a river, only to be caught by Queen Piers. Piers promised to keep her secret that she was here and asked why Mang was letting the turtles go. Mang explained that she often bought them from collectors just to set them free. Comparing it to her own life, her brother kept her hidden away because of her plain looks. Piers shared that she'd seen both beautiful people acting ugly and average folks showing incredible acts of kindness. She remarks that the turtle is free, thanks to you, but Mang wasn't having it. She snapped, saying there's no way Piers could possibly understand how she and other ugly people feel, especially since she pampered in her fancy world. Mang, calming down, apologized for her outburst, and Piers forgave her, even showing her the underground laboratory hidden beneath the throne. There, Piers revealed her crazy inventions, including the aesthetic detectors, a wild device meant to protect whoever's hotter in any argument. She scrapped the idea long ago, realizing how nuts it was. Piers also reveals a collection of devices that had once been intended as harmless experiments, some of which would later be weaponized by the Four Knights. She points out her most recent creation, the Beauty Veil, a device capable of enhancing physical appearances. Finally, she directs Mang's attention to a towering structure in the lab, known as the aesthetic seismograph. This machine, a family heirloom passed down through generations, has the ability to influence the planet's magnetic core and manipulate how people perceive beauty. Piers explains that generations ago her ancestors lived in a world where wealth and height were worshipped, and anyone with enough oratory talent could become a king. Eventually, her great-great-grandmother established beauty as the world's standard, and Pai's family has been guarding the seismograph ever since. Despite this legacy, Pai often questioned whether beauty was truly the best standard for humanity. Unexpectedly, Mang grabs one of Piers' inventions, the appearance gun, and points it at her. Piers is transformed into Heihachi Mishima, later we known as Dr. Machete. Mang tosses the gun aside, destroying it, ensuring Machete will never revert to Piers. Mang reveals she lied about the turtles, saying she released them because they reminded her of her own ugliness. She admits she feels unattractive, untalented, and unworthy, believing the world is unfair, and rotten to its core, beautiful people could never understand her struggles. Mang wants to be like Piers. Piers tries reasoning, offering to help Mang become beautiful over time, but Mang refuses, demanding beauty now. As she transforms into Queen Pai, she warns that the seismograph's effects will last only 3 years, but by then, Mang claims everyone will be dead, including herself. Now Mang, claiming the title of queen, orders the other peers to disappear. A drone fires at Pai, but she escapes using a hidden remote, leaving Mang 3 years to live a beautiful life while Pai limps away in her fighting game character form. Gu, watching these memories unfold, discovers the truth about the world. The memories swirling in Gu's mind begin to merge into a vivid vision of Piers. Pai admits that she was, in fact, Machete, the very man who helped Gu become a beautiful woman. Gu, now concerned for her sister, expresses her worry, but Piers reassures her. Time in this space moves differently from the outside world. Pai explains that they are inside the inner workings of the aesthetic seismograph, where her consciousness, along with those of her ancestors, is stored. The blood sample Gu was given earlier unlocked access to this space. Gu then asks how she can turn off the beauty filter that Mang has been developing. Piers regretfully informs her that the beauty filter, powered by the seismograph, can no longer be stopped. Mang's modifications have made it unstoppable. Gu presses on, asking how she can save those deemed non-beautiful life. Piers explains that there is only one way, to reset the world's beauty standards. There is no other alternative. Pai remarks that she has long thought about what the proper standard for people should be. She has observed memories of her predecessors, who all had different answers to that question. Some worshipped height, others health, and others money. Different generations appreciate different aesthetics, and these standards always change. However, she has found that there is one constant, the average Joe. She encourages Gu to change the rules so that ordinary people become the new standard, but this will inevitably leave out those who don't live up to them. She asks Gu to choose. Gu stands silent for a moment before declaring that she won't make a choice. She hates this world where beauty decides everything. She fought against that world and failed, but everything changed when she became beautiful. From her new position of power, she made high-star people do the work of low-star people and freed the prisoners of Ugly Gate Prison. However, she now knows that she was wrong. Cha was right. Beauty isn't inherently bad. What's bad is using it as the ultimate standard of living. Gu sees another way out: destroy the seismograph completely. Piers, horrified, tells her to reconsider. Without the seismograph, all the equipment throughout the country and the world would stop working, and Gu herself might die. Gu has accepted her fate. She's confident that even without the drones telling people their worth, they will decide for themselves. No longer will ugly people hide in shame. Everyone will have the same opportunity to make a name for themselves. That world is enough. Gu recalls all the drones back to the castle and has them target the seismograph. In a united attack, the drones open fire on the device, and Piers' laboratory is blown to bits. As Gu's body slowly crumbles away, Pi fades too, hoping Gu made the right choice. The results are instant. The people are freed, Machete transforms back into Piers, and Mang opens her eyes to find herself still alive. The seismograph is destroyed, but so is Gu. In her final moments, she hopes the world turns out to be beautiful. She says a final goodbye to Mang as the castle is enveloped by a massive pillar of light, visible for miles. Mang, realizing Gu sacrificed herself, cries out in grief. 2 years have passed. The horrors of that day are immortalized in a memorial, with many paying their respects to the deceased. There is much talk of apprehending the fake Piers, but soon the true Piers returns to the castle and officially repeals the Beauty Class Act. Piers also holds a press conference for the first time in ages. Later, after dismissing a meeting with her ministers, Piers asks May if she's found the culprit. May replies that they haven't found her yet. Piers remarks that the culprit likely doesn't want to be found. Across the world, both unattractive and attractive people now live in peace, though many unattractive people have started heavily using filters to change their appearance. Meanwhile, Mang has begun living on her own. The door behind her swings open and a familiar voice calls her name.